Hello, hello, YouTube. Hope you are doing well. I am currently live right now. I'm live, at least if you're watching me, it's 9 a.m. Central Time on July 26th. And we are live. If you're watching me some other time, I am not live. This is a replay, but you're still going to get lots of value out of it. We are doing a Q&A. So I have some questions that have been submitted that were submitted mostly through our Facebook group that I wanted to answer. And then also we'll take some questions if anybody has questions while we are live on here. So when you're here, tell me hello so that I know that I'm actually live, because sometimes I feel like I'm just talking to myself. And then we're going to get into it. So on this channel, if you haven't kind of hung around our YouTube channel much, we are typically talking about financial literacy for business owners. So whether you are a freelancer, a sole proprietor, maybe you have a small business, right? Whatever you have, we talk all about financial literacy. I'm a CPA, a financial literacy coach, and a profit strategist. So that's a lot. It's a mouthful. But all of those things are kind of my sweet spot things that I really like to do. And we've moved a lot of our content for a few years. We did most of our content on Facebook. But the problem with Facebook is that when you create training videos over on Facebook in a Facebook group, then people view them for a little while, a day or two, and then they're kind of gone. They're hard to organize. It's hard for people to find them. And so YouTube has been the place that we have found is a great place to hold all the content where you can go search for what you need when you need it. That's what I really, really like about YouTube. So we're going to continue to do more and more of our content over here on YouTube. If you haven't noticed, during the month of July, we've been doing a huge YouTube promo. So we are on our road to 25,000 subscribers. We are not there yet. We are not even close yet. And we need y'all's help. So that's kind of the first thing I'm going to say is a call to action to help us out. If you're watching this right now, press the subscribe button. If you have not already, you do need to be logged into YouTube to be able to do that. And then when you do that, or if you're maybe already subscribed, go to jamietrell.com/giveaway and you can join our giveaway for $1,000. And this is the final week. This coming Sunday, the 31st of July is the last day to enter, and you can get entries, completely for free. There's absolutely nothing that you have to buy, and you're going to be able to be entered to win $1,000. So we're going to announce those next Monday, which is August 1st. This is the first time we've ever done a giveaway, and we would love to have you guys join. So again, you can join. You don't even have to subscribe if you don't want to. The only thing that we ask you to do to get entries is to do something kind or do something to support another small business. That is really something very, very important to us. We think that as small businesses really support one another, that's how we grow together, especially when times get a little bit difficult. We've seen that before. So please go support another small business. And then all you have to do is go to jamietrell.com/giveaway, and you will be able to tell us what you did and get an entry, actually get 2 entries for that into the contest. And then it gives you additional things that you can do, like subscribe to our YouTube channel, join our email newsletter in order to get additional entries toward that $1,000. And I'm going to tell y'all, because, y'all are here. I'm going to tell you a little secret. We haven't gotten as many entries as I thought we would. So what does that mean? That's bad news for me. Because it means our giveaway hasn't really worked in the way that we hoped that it would, but good news for you because we're still giving away $1,000, and that means you have a better chance of winning. So don't, kind of sleep on this. You're going to want to put your entry in because you never know. There's going to be way, way better odds than, your scratch off ticket lottery. Okay. So who couldn't use another $1,000 right now? Good morning, Crystal. Crystal's from my team. If y'all need help, she's in the chat to help you. And we're going to jump into some questions. So just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of the giveaway. And we're going to continue to do more content over here. Check out the videos. We've done multiple videos a week now in the month of July. So we have done videos on how to get SBA loans. We have done videos on, goodness, so many things. I'm like forgetting real estate investing. I had Sheena, one of my preferred vendors, come in and talk about real estate investing. We have done videos about increasing profit. We've done videos about saving on taxes. There have been lots of different things, how to get the most for your travel deductions. So we have lots of new videos that have come out. And I would love for you all to check them out. So please check them out. Share with a friend if you find something helpful. That is always very beneficial to us. Okay, let's jump into some questions. And if you guys have questions on anything, really, this is an open Q&A. Usually I try to be a little more specific with what I'm taking questions about. But if you've got questions about anything related to small business finances, now's a good time to ask that question. So small business finances, that could be, COVID related. That could be just general management of your finances on a day-to-day basis. That could be how to increase profit. I'm here. So I will answer whatever questions that I can that you have right now. So, okay, I'm going to jump into it. I'm going to put first the questions from Mark up here. So Mark did submit some questions for this Q&A. I think he said he couldn't be on here. Mark is one of my former students and always is very engaged. And so I love getting questions from Mark. So he's got a whole long, here, I'll put it up here so that we can see it. So Mark's question was, so he's trying to control better expenses, like his expenses better for his business. So he was asking questions about expense control. Obviously, expense control is really, really important, right? So specifically things that affect a lot of small business owners, right? The cost of health insurance, not cheap, y'all. Insurance on commercial vehicles, okay? And negotiating office leases. These probably touch a lot of you. And you're probably wondering what in the world you can do in order to reduce your expenses. So he goes on to talk about how expensive these things are. They're looking to renegotiate their lease or potentially move. So any tips I have on that? So first I'm going to talk about health insurance because this is something that really affects a lot of small businesses. And the cost of health insurance is expensive, right? It's expensive. It's expensive for business owners, sometimes also expensive for your employees. And that's hard, especially for when you have a small business, because you don't quite have the purchasing power to be able to get in on these plans that would be more affordable. So one of the things I typically tell other small business owners is to think about doing some kind of a health insurance reimbursement plan. So a health reimbursement plan called an HRA. And there are a lot of options for this. There are a few different things that you can do and different ways that you can structure it and different tax consequences of each of those ways. And I'm going to link actually I'm going to put on here a link to, I'm going to put on here a link to an article about it that you can pull up. So in the comments, I've linked to an article about health reimbursement plans. And what's great about them is that people can shop around to get the best plan for them. And you can still give them the benefit of helping to support that, right? And it gives them more choice. So they can shop around, find a plan that works best for them. And then you can help to reimburse those costs where you as the employer don't have to, take on the burden of finding the plan and having people sign up, all the things that you have to do when you offer a health plan in-house. You can still give your employees the benefit, but they can pick the health plan that works best for them, right? And there are some rules, obviously, stipulations, things to know about. That's why I've linked this article. I don't want to get into all the details, but it can be really helpful. If you have under 50 employees, a qualified small business, qualified small employer, HRA might be the way to go. So take a look at that. Take a look at if there's anything in there that might be helpful. I think that's often one of the things that when we're at a stage where our business is not big enough yet, right? That we're trying to get to that point, but we want to be able to offer competitive benefits and take care of our people, that this might be a really good kind of middle ground until we can get to that point, until it makes sense for us to do an in-house plan. And we can get one at an affordable rate. Okay, that's health insurance. He also was asking about vehicle insurance for commercial vehicles. Like, what can we do there? Unfortunately, I don't have a ton of tips there because the insurance companies are going to control that, right? And I will say commercial vehicle insurance is more expensive. So this probably doesn't apply to Mark because I think Mark really is using these, fully and primarily for his business. But a lot of people think that it's better to purchase a vehicle under their business and that they're going to get better business deductions for it from a tax perspective. And typically, I'll just say typically that's not the case. Typically, you can still get business deductions for your vehicle, especially if it's split use, right? You're still going to get essentially the same deductions, tax deductions, even if you buy it personally, as long as you're tracking that and either doing mileage or taking actual expenses and picking out your business use, right? But you won't have to pay additional insurance, right? So commercial insurance does tend to be more expensive. So if you do have it titled to your business, it's going to be more expensive. Now, again, if you're using them primarily in your business or fully in your business, then it probably does make sense for it to be a commercial vehicle. That's probably the case here in Mark's case, right? But you still want to shop around. Just like any other insurance, it's key to shop around. It's key to check out what else is out there. Oftentimes you can get better deals by moving to new vehicle insurance companies, just like you can when you're shopping for personal vehicle insurance. This is something that I, as a matter of practice, do about every 5 years. And then sometimes what you can do if you really don't want to switch, y'all, and this is true with a lot of things, but if you really don't want to switch, do the research and say, hey, this other company, call up your insurance agent and say, hey, this other company is able to give me this for this similar coverage. Can you match it? And I swear, like they have more control than you think to be able to kind of make those adjustments because they don't want to lose a customer, right? So that's true with a lot of things. Those of you who have, I love doing the price matching thing. Like that's just a general practice in my life. Is to kind of come up to people and so doing the research and being armed with that research can be really, really helpful anytime you're going into negotiations on anything financial, is to have that research. And similarly, right, when we're talking about office rent, because that was your other question, Mark, for office rent, same thing. Come armed, right? Talk to a commercial real estate agent, get some comps for what other, or even shop around yourself for what you would pay at other places if you were to renegotiate your lease. So you talk about like your lease is coming up, you want to renegotiate it, or might be moving, right? But ultimately, it's cheaper for you and it's cheaper for them to keep you where you are. So remember, you have some power. Now, of course, it depends on the market and how the market is where you live, right? And how competitive it is. That's all going to factor into this. But in general, it's always going to be cheaper for that leasing company to keep you, the current tenant, than to have to go out, find a new tenant, get them, up and running. They're going to lose money doing that. So they may, especially if you have been a reliable tenant that has paid them on time all the time, right? You have a little bit of bargaining power. So don't be afraid to use it and make sure that you come with saying, hey, here's what I would pay if I were going to be renegotiating, going to these other spots. What kind of deal can you give me? And again, for the same reason, it should be a little bit cheaper than what it would be if you were to go sign a new lease somewhere else, because again, they should want to incentivize you to stay there as a good tenant. So just do your research. It's always key. Financial anything, going out there and gathering as much information as you can and coming armed to those conversations is really, really beneficial. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. And he was also asking about if there's any kind of, groups that you can join that can help with this. Your local chamber of commerce may have some, bargaining power, things like that. Any of those local business groups like that, they may have special deals that they can get you that you can be a part of, by being a part of that group. So check that out. They're usually not overly, I guess our Chamber of Commerce does do some of that, but it's not, massive discounts, but it could be worth it depending on, the volume and how much you could potentially save. Okay. All right. Oh, and I always think about this is just classic Jamie, where I am talking about something and then I think about, just an aside to this conversation, because we're talking very specifically about expense control. And expense control, y'all know me, it's very important to have good, tight expense control. And not that you're not spending money to invest in your business, but on expenses, things like insurance, which are just straight up expenses. The more you pay in insurance, it's not like you're getting a return on that investment, right? So we want to try to minimize those costs as much as possible. That's what I teach. However, we are in an inflationary environment, y'all. Okay, we're in an inflationary environment. What does it mean that we're in an inflationary environment? That means that costs are just going up. So you cannot expense control yourself out of inflation and the effects of inflation. You just can't. Now you may have some room, like it may actually, if you haven't gone out to bid for different suppliers or things like that in a while, right? If you haven't gone out to rebid your insurance in a while, it may provide that motivation to go spend that time to do it, right? When you're in kind of an inflationary pressure. But you also probably have to make sure you're also looking at your price, right? You can't just try to expense control your way out of inflation and maintaining your margins. Costs are going to be going up, right? So yes, we can try to like pat ourselves and help ourselves as much as we can in that situation, but costs are generally going to be going up, and that means your prices probably are going to have to too. So yes, look for cost savings, but don't be afraid to pull the trigger on a price increase in order to maintain your margins, because it's just, you cannot expense control your way out of it, unfortunately. Okay. I'm going to answer a question that was submitted into our Facebook group. So some of these were just submitted as questions. If you're not in our Facebook group, it's called Financial Literacy for Women Business Owners. You can join it by going to jamietroll.com/group. Just jamietroll.com/group. That'll take you to where you can join our Facebook group. It's totally free. There's almost 40,000 members. So if you're not in it, it's a great place to be. It's a great place to submit questions and get users who are responding. If we have resources or videos or trainings or things like that that we can direct you to, we do that as well. So I highly recommend joining our Facebook group. And some of these are just questions that were submitted that I thought were useful, that might be useful for other people. So I'm going to answer a question that Val submitted this week into the group. So her question was, where do you keep your savings money? Okay, where do you keep your savings money? Whether it's 100K or whether it's 1K or 200K, where do you keep it? And so I would say, obviously, it depends on how much it is, right? So it depends on how much it is. So I'll tell you, for me personally, how I handle this. And I'm going to tell you from a business side, but I'll also touch on personal, because business and personal are so intertwined when we are, small business owners. But on a business side, I typically keep an emergency fund. I call it my rainy day savings. Okay. That is kept within my bank account. Now, there's two different ways you can do this. You can either open your own business savings account, especially if that is money that you expect to use in your business. So when I talk about rainy day funds, I don't mean rainy day funds for me as a person. I mean rainy day funds for my business, right? So if, for example, my business is fairly seasonal. We have certain months of the year where we bring in a large proportion of our revenue. We have other months of the year, i.e. the summer, right? Which is very low because we're not really selling anything. We're not out there actively promoting a whole heck of a lot. And so because of that, we see a dip in our revenues. And I want to be able to continue to pay my payroll. I want to be able to continue to pay the expenses that I have ongoing in my business without worrying about it. And so I have created a rainy day fund for that purpose. And in case, it's also there in case things just kind of go to heck in a handbasket, we'll say, like has happened in our recent past, right? So I like to have that rainy day fund. I recommend, because people ask me this all the time, having 3 to 6 months worth of your operating expenses, i.e. your ongoing operating expenses, the things that you couldn't just like turn off overnight, right? In your business, saved up in this rainy day fund. The amount of that, so some people may be fine with 1 to 2 months, especially if your business is fairly, regular as far as how much revenue you bring in. The more cyclical you are, the higher you might want to get. Now, you're not going to get that overnight. That's going to be, month after month. You're going to put a little bit away until you get to that point, hopefully, where you have enough of that emergency fund. But I save that money within my bank account. So I use a banking platform called Novo. And the great thing about Novo, and the thing that I like about it, and the one thing that I looked for when I was trying to find this, well, two things I looked for: free. I wanted free business banking. Sorry, I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay to give you my money. So no. And I also wanted something that had the ability to set up different kind of envelope system, right? So different reserves. So I use this not just for my rainy day fund, but also for taxes, as I'm saving for taxes between when I pay my estimated taxes and things like that. I have an account where I am saving for that. I have an account that I'm saving for any other business investments, to be able to take the opportunity to invest in other things in my business, right? So I separate these all into different reserves, and Novo allows me to do that without having to open up a whole bunch of different bank accounts. So a lot of people use Profit First, which does say, hey, you need to open up all these different bank accounts. For me, like I don't want to manage all of that. That feels like a lot. So I like having one bank account that does all of it, where I can still segregate that money where it's out of sight, out of mind, but then I can instantly pull it back in when I need, right? So when I pay my taxes, I just, do a quick push of a button to move that money from my tax account where it's sitting, from my tax kind of reserve account, and it goes right back into my operating. So if you're interested in Novo, you can check out jamietroll.com/Novo. If your bank allows you to do that, most business banks don't have that functionality, which is why I really like Novo. But you can also set up a separate business banking account. Now, I would not put over, call it 3 to 6 months of business operating expenses in there. Like that's just overkill. If you have more than that, right? That may be when it's time, to pay yourself that money, take that owner draw out, right? And potentially invest that money. Now, I don't typically recommend, some people do investment accounts under their business. I don't typically recommend that. It gets a little bit messy from a tax perspective. I would just almost prefer that you just pay yourself that money as a small business owner, and that be part of, the compensation that you take. And then you go invest that additional money. So on my personal side, when I have extra money on the personal side, again, I keep a portion of it liquid. So same thing, 3 to 6 months. I want to be able to pay my mortgage, my childcare, all those various, important things that I can't stop overnight. I want to have that built up and I want to have it liquid, meaning I want to be able to access it right away, right? I don't want to have to sell stocks or, wait or any of that to be able to access this money. I like to keep that aside in a separate savings account that is just ready to go. Okay. And actually what I do truthfully, because I don't have a separate savings account on the personal side, I instead actually have a brokerage account, but I keep a portion of it in cash. So it kind of serves as a savings account. You can put it even into a money market within a brokerage account too. And it's pretty easily accessible. It might take you a day, but in general, you can sell it pretty quickly. Now, anything additional I have above that 3 to 6 months gets invested or is waiting to be invested. So I do a lot of investing. I'm not an investment advisor, so I'm not going to give you any specific tips on that, but I do a lot of investing with ETFs, stocks, very simple things that I purchase that will appreciate over time. And again, talking about an inflationary environment, you don't want to have $200,000 of cash just sitting around unless you have a plan to say, okay, I'm going to invest this over time. That's fine, right? But don't just have a ton of cash sitting around, because in an inflationary environment, that cash is actually losing value. Now, I know that the stock market can be risky for some, or feel risky. The younger you are and the less you need that money, the more I would suggest that you go ahead and start investing, and you can do it in kind of broad spectrum ETFs and things like that just mirror the market, right? And yeah, you may lose money at first, but again, this is money that you don't need right away or don't have plans to need in the foreseeable future. If that's true, then feel free to invest it. There are also more fixed income type things that are a lot less risky that you can invest in as well, that aren't going to gain as much money generally, but they're also not going to lose as much money. So you're not going to have, typically if you want the upside, you also potentially get the downside. But you have certain investments that you can invest in that will be a little bit more stable in general, but you're not going to have huge, massive upswings either. But again, when we're in inflation that's 8%, right? And if you're putting something in, and making 0%, you're losing 8% of your money. If you are putting it into something that makes 2%, you're still losing 6% of your money by saving it. That's crazy, right? So you want to be doing something, you want to be getting strategic, maybe talking to a financial planner. If you're in to where you have hundreds of thousands of dollars you don't know what to do with, a financial planner is a really good person to talk to. So that is my recommendation. Okay. All right. I have 2 more questions that I think would be helpful. And again, if you guys have questions, I see y'all on here, but everybody's being very quiet. So if you guys have specific questions you want to ask me, now is the time. I am live. Gotta drink my coffee. Haven't had my coffee yet this morning, y'all. Okay. So this is a question from Jessica with a Y. I love those spellings. I wish I was Jamie with a Y. I just do. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so Jessica asked, so I'll put this all up here because it's long. So frustrated. I just hired my first employee and I'm trying to onboard them. Oh, I know why I picked this one. I'll tell you all in a minute. Apparently I missed a step when I was registering for the 20 different accounts I needed to pay state taxes, unemployment, workers' comp, etc. So I'm trying to set up this last bit, and the state wants to know when I will plan to exceed $1,500 in gross wages and what date I will have a single employee that will work for me for 20 weeks. Sure, let me grab my crystal ball. I love this. This is so real. Sure, let me grab my crystal ball and tell you the future of my business. How the heck am I supposed to answer that? I'm starting out with less than 10 hours a week. I have no idea if this employee is going to stick around, no idea what kind of hours I'm going to give her. Help. Okay. All right. So I love this. I love this because I feel you right now. Like, I feel you. We've been doing some, I wanted to try out a new payroll system so that I could give you guys feedback on it. I'm always trying out new systems. So we also just got a new EIN for our business because we're restructuring a little bit. So we got a new EIN. And so I decided it was a good time to switch payroll systems in the middle of the year, which is, it really is, right? I switched it right at the beginning of July because my thought was, okay, I'll run Q3 and Q4 in this new system and get some experience with it. And it has been not fun. It has reminded me, right? Especially now we're trying to transition and I'm having to go through that same process because I got a new EIN, even though it's still, my same business because we're restructuring. Technically, it's a new business. And so what I'm having to do, I have remote employees. They work in multiple different states. And so because of that, I have to register in multiple different states for payroll. So I have to register as an employer. I usually have to register as an employer with the state Department of Revenue, whoever does the income tax withholding, which again is going to be different in different states, but the income tax withholding, if that state has an income tax. And then unemployment, you need to register for unemployment. Sometimes it's called reemployment in Florida. I don't know. All of that. And so I'm feeling this pain. I spent an entire day a couple weeks ago just white knuckling my way through all of this and calling all the state departments of revenue and all the state departments of unemployment, making sure that I was putting in the right forms, that I was doing everything the correct way. And man, I saw this question come up at the exact same time from Jessica, and I was like, oh, I feel this. I feel this. And truth be told, I mean, yes, you can. The first thing I'll say to your question specifically, Jessica, is I wouldn't worry too much about how you answer the questions on those forms. So when you're going in to fill those forms out, it will ask you questions around, or often depending on the state, it's going to be different in every state, around when will you reach this amount in payroll? And, exactly like, what date will you have an employee that works a certain, and you're like, I don't know, like I'm hiring someone 10 hours a week. I have no idea. I would just count it out from that. Right? Like I would just say, okay, based on what I pay this one person right now, like when would I then reach this point in time? The reason they're asking you those questions is not anything related to your tax rate or anything like that. So I think that's what's annoying about this is it doesn't tell you like, hey, this doesn't really matter. This is just so we have an idea. And this is just so that we can kind of figure out like what the payment schedule is. So sometimes it'll be determining whether you need to be paying in quarterly or monthly. Like sometimes, those questions are leading into that, but overall, they don't matter that much, right? It's not going to be a huge deal. So I remember the first time I did payroll, I was like, I don't know. I literally sat with a calendar and I'm like, doing all these calculations to try to make sure that I'm accurate. And this time I'm just clicking buttons, to be honest. When you have multiple states, you're like, okay, yeah, sometime around this period of time, right? Just clicking buttons. And so I wouldn't worry too much. It's not gonna change your tax liability at all. You're not gonna get in trouble. I think that's the other thing when they ask you these questions, we always feel like we're gonna get in trouble if we get it wrong. Nobody's ever going to come back and say, hey, you told us on this form XYZ, but it was really, they'll adjust that when you file your 941s. If it's more often, if you're paying more or you reach that point earlier, they will adjust all of that on their side. They will adjust your payment schedule. They will handle that. So don't worry too much about, getting too specific on that. But I feel your pain. I feel the pain of all the many different agencies. I will tell you, oh man, I got to find you. I'm going to put this picture up because I wish I had them all still unopened, but this was me. I sent this to my team. I don't know if y'all can see this. These were all the envelopes I got in the mail. I think this was Monday. I think it was yesterday. I got all these envelopes from the mail, all from the state of Florida. I have one employee in the state of Florida, and Florida sent me 6 different envelopes. You'd think that they could combine some of these things. This is the Department of Revenue sent me 3. The reemployment assistance program sent me 2. Actually, the 6th one, I have to admit, that was my traffic ticket for going through the Sun Pass when we were there in June. So that one was actually unrelated, but oh, you're sweet. I love you too. I love how people are telling me they love me. Thanks. Thanks, Elizabeth. That's awesome. Okay. All right. Last question for you. Hopefully that was helpful, or at least maybe not helpful as much as it was to make you feel seen, because I feel you. I feel you right now. Also, just to preview, more payroll content is coming up. So if you are in a place where you're thinking about hiring or thinking about switching your payroll company, within the next couple of weeks on this YouTube channel, I'm going to be releasing some new content around comparisons. Like I said, I've been trying out different systems. So the things that I do to make sure that I can speak intelligently about this and really recommend the systems that I think will be best for you. And my next content will really be talking about, like, if you're in this spot, what payroll company would I put you to? So I'm not just recommending one payroll. In the past, I've always done Gusto. I still recommend Gusto. And I still have some special deals for Gusto. However, there are some other ones that I recommend depending on your specific situation. So I'm going to be getting into that within the next, probably 2 weeks. I should have this up and running. So make sure you have subscribed to the channel so you see it. Okay, last question is from Valerie. And Valerie asked, I love this question too. In the Facebook group, Valerie asked, I was asked what a small business owner should do to make the most of their quarterly meetings with their CPA. I have a few key points that I think should be addressed, but I wanted to see what you had to say about it. Okay, so hang on one second. And Valerie had some really good points already thought up of, like, you should have them review your financial reports for accuracy, etc. But the first thing, I'm going to kind of level set really quickly, because this is where we get not confused, but this is where there's some clarification necessary sometimes, right? Around, okay, you're having quarterly meetings with your CPA, but what is that CPA? What are you paying them to do, right? What services come with that quarterly meeting? And so if this is a CPA that is simply only doing your taxes at the end of the year, and the quarterly meeting is more about figuring out your estimated taxes and making sure you're on point, then that's maybe all you're going to do, right? But if this is kind of more of a full service CPA accountant who is going to be doing a lot of different things for your business and doing advisory work, right? Have you asked them to do advisory work in your business? Is that part of what comes with this? Then I would say the key is, don't just look backwards. You want to look backwards? You want to spend time looking backwards. Here's what has happened. See what questions they have. Kind of go over certain things, right? Look at past profit margins. Again, that's a little bit more CFO than CPA. So it does depend on what you have contracted with them to do. But you want to look back. So look backwards for part of the time. And then the other part of the time, you want to be looking forwards, forecasting it out. Not just for the sake of your, making sure that you are saving for taxes and paying the right amount of taxes for estimated taxes, right? That's one of the reasons you look forward, because your taxes are going to be based on your full year, and you want to make sure that you are projecting out what you think your profits are going to be, and that is accurately reflected in the tax payments that you are making, right? Great. But also looking at it from a tax planning standpoint, are there investments you should make into your business this year versus next year? Should you be making a change in your entity type, right? Are you still the right entity type? Are there other additional tax mitigating things that you can do in order to reduce that tax liability? Because the problem is, by the time we get to the end of the year, oftentimes that ship has sailed. Like, maybe if we make changes, it'll help us for next year. But when we're looking in January, there's very little that can be done. When you're looking in July, there's a lot that can be done. So looking at the future and thinking about, what changes might I need to make? How might I be able to reduce my tax liability? That's really key to be talking about with your CPA. And if they're doing advisory CFO type work, that's when you're wanting to look at forecasting, right? Forecasting your, not just for the rest of the year for taxes, but into the future, forecasting for the next 5 years, potentially, right? Looking at your financial statements in the past, analyzing where you've been, looking at, do you need to change your prices? Do you need to look at cost savings? Again, that's more CFO level. So typically you will have to make sure that you've contracted them for that type of service. But again, I think the key is to understand, what is the CPA doing for me, right? Are they doing my bookkeeping? Are they, doing just my taxes? Are they doing tax planning for me? Are they doing tax strategy for me? Are they doing CFO work for me? And make sure that you're optimizing then the questions that you're asking. And again, I'll say this too, a good CPA will be proactive, where you want to come and be prepared, right? You want to have looked and have your questions sorted, but they will guide you with the questions that they are asking you, right? They will guide you towards what you've contracted them for, right? They will be the ones looking at the strategy side of things. They will be proactive about it. Now, that's not always the case. So it is good to have those questions ready, but a really good CPA, especially if there's someone doing any kind of advisory work, will already have ideas for you before you ask them any questions. That's how you know, or they might have questions for you before you ask them any questions, but that's how you know. So that would be my recommendation, but I think all of yours are really good too about talking about large, purchases on the horizon, anything you're planning, right? And they can help you plan for that. Looking at cash flow can be a really good thing. Again, that can be really helpful so that when you can afford something, when you can't. Like, those are great conversations to have with your CPA. I do recommend having a financial team around you that you can ask these types of questions through to year round, and you're not just using them for kind of that compliance work, i.e. the filing of the tax returns and things like that. But you're also using them in order to really help you grow and scale your business, because I think that's where the real value is. It's more expensive. Those types of things are more expensive, but it can definitely be worth it. So just quick plug, because people will, the next question is, where do I find someone? I don't do that kind of work, but I do have preferred vendors who do. JamieTrull.com/preferred-vendors, or just go to JamieTrull.com and you can find them on my website, where I list a lot of, they're all female CPAs and bookkeepers and people like that who can help you with this type of thing. A lot of them, I think all of them actually have these kind of year-round packages too that you can do if you want to, where they will help you throughout the year. Okay, that's all I have for today. Y'all were quiet. Y'all were very quiet. I like doing lives, so I want to do more lives over here on YouTube. Make sure to join the giveaway. So I cannot stress this enough. Potential $1,000, JamieTrull.com/giveaway. Lots of ways to enter. 0 of them cost any money. Okay. They help support my business. They make me smile, and they help you maybe win $1,000. So hopefully you are running to do that right now. I'm going to go check after this. And I will talk to y'all next time. I'll see you later.